working on a 9-year transformation project for a major media legacy organisation. I'm currently serving as the CEO of Create Equity, and so I've pivoted my extensive commercial expertise towards addressing systemic inequalities in business funding. So Create Equity's mission is to make investment in the arts, social enterprise and commercial industries racially equitable. The organisation has designed and launched capacity building programmes to fund and develop Black and Brown-led businesses. Create Equity, through its advisory and consultancy practice, provides businesses with growth strategies, development opportunities and operational expertise. In addition to this, I also have an advisory role with Social Investment Business. So I provide direct support to Black and minority-led organisations seeking funding. So I help them with guiding their applications, and I also represent them at investment committee. It's also important that when supporting these leaders, that you provide them with the continuous support that they might need pre-investment, during the investment process and post. So I'm proud to let you know that I'm also an alumni of the School of Social Entrepreneurs of the Black Leadership Programme. I'm a qualified mind, mental wellbeing trainer and coach. I'm also a mental health first aider, and I've gone back to school and I'm an apprentice now doing my coach mentoring with the OMC. And the reason why I'm doing that is ensuring that my leadership approach remains contemporary and holistic to serve our communities.
Deborah. Raheem, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Asha. I am Raheem Manan. I am a pre-investment portfolio manager at the Growth Impact Fund, which is a fund that invests in underrepresented founders with lived experience of the social challenges that they're looking to address. In my role, I work with founders to help them become investment ready and build sustainable organizations along the way and ultimately access capital. On a more personal note, I grew up in a township in Cape Town in South Africa. So a lot of my work is driven by wanting to build more equitable systems and open doors to underserved or for underserved communities. And yeah, my background spans about 7-8 years across early stage investing, strategy consulting and business coaching as well. And I'm really excited to be part of the conversation today.
Thank you, Raheem. And finally, Peter, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, panel, colleagues, visitors. My name's Peter Merrifield. I'm the chief exec and founder of a global majority-led organisation called Support When It Matters, or our abbreviation is SWIM. Some people might know us by that. I have a long experience of working within health and social care. That wasn't my original career. My original career was in the construction industry, so a long-term surveyor, working in local authorities, old enough to have been around when Thatcher's right to buy came into force in the 90s and saw the impact of social housing on certain communities and the loss of social housing and the consequential impact of that on particularly Black and Brown minoritized groups. So I come from that. I had a period of lived experience of poor mental health, which allowed me to really pivot my career when I recognized that there were many people who looked, sounded like me, and came from communities like me that were being poorly served, right, within the health and social care sector. And I remember my great father saying to me when we used to sit down and have debates on a Saturday evenings with uncles and aunts and everybody else in the Caribbean family. And he would say things like, well, if you feel that strongly about something, you need to go and do something about it. And those were his words way back in the 80s. And those words stuck with me when I managed to rehabilitate myself. And I thought, well, actually, that was predicated on somebody who looked like me coming and showing me exactly what they did. And so therefore, that prompted me to create the service I wanted to see, a service that was going to be open and welcoming to people from particularly Black men, right, from certain African Caribbean heritage communities, where they were going to be allowed to bring their whole self to the service and not leave any part of themselves at the door, you know. And so Swim was born. And from there, I can say we have had a huge growth from just me and my daughter setting out to now employing, I don't know, over the last 5 years, 40 odd staff, delivering services across 13 London boroughs. Turnover.
So Peter,
yes.
sorry to cut you, because we're going to get into that, and we've got a very limited period of time, and I just want to get straight into the questions.
Absolutely.
And the first question is to you, and remember, short, a quick answer.
That might be difficult, but I'll try
to get through. Okay, but so my first question to you, Peter, is a lot of organizations hesitate to explore social investment. From your experience, what ensures investment strengthens rather than distracts from the mission?
I think it's important to understand that the word social in the word investment doesn't always mean it's going to be warm and cuddly, right? So what I mean by that is that be prepared, right, for hard-nosed commercial facts in the social space. Don't be fooled by the fact that it sounds nice, the word social's in there, because what I have learned is that the money's expensive, right? There is also the potential that in order to follow that money, you might find yourself subconsciously drifting from your initial ideas. So just be mindful that everything has a price, including social investment has a price. Just be mindful of that. It's not all warm and cuddly. And if you do your homework and be unafraid, that's the other critical thing, is to be confident in ensuring your mission stays at the center of it. That can be a bit difficult if you want the money at the same time.
Thank you, Peter. So Raheem, as an investor, what are the core signals you look for to assess alignment between your values and that of the potential investee?
Thanks, Asher. The truth is, I could go down a long list, but then in the interest of time, I'll try and focus on 3 core areas. The first is the organization's purpose and mission. So why exactly does the business exist? And that comes down to what problem or social challenge you're solving, who you serve, and what tangible difference your solution actually makes. The second is ambition. And really, when I say ambition, I mean ambition that's realistic. We don't necessarily look for organizations that have scaled nationally or have plans to expand internationally. In the early stages, we look for traction. So some evidence of revenue, successful pilots, wait lists, or contracts that you may have secured early on. And then more importantly, a credible plan to grow both that revenue and that impact going forward. And then last but not least, certainly is that values alignment, which Asher, you've touched on. Investors don't just invest in businesses, and social investors, invest in people. And so we're looking for openness, adaptability, humility, and collaboration, because that really signals that we can build a healthy, mission-aligned, long-term partnership, which is essentially what a good investment relationship is and becomes. And yeah, I'll sort of stop there. To summarize, alignment on purpose, ambition.
No, I like that mission and vision and values and the values that you set out. Yeah, a real cornerstone. So, Deborah, for leaders searching for the right investor, what should be their top non-negotiables?
Right. That's really interesting because I'm actually going to echo a little bit of what Raheem has just said. So when you're looking for a social investor, you should focus on finding the right strategic partner. So not just funding. That's really, really important. And the key things to look out for are alignment of mission and values. That's really important. So the investor should genuinely understand and share your social impact goals. Look for investors whose portfolio and track record demonstrates commitment to your sector or cause. Because we know, if they're misaligned, it can create that tension, and we want to avoid that at all costs. Social impact does take time to materialize, so seek investors who understand your realities, offer flexible, patient capital rather than demanding immediate returns. Clarify up front what good looks like to them so you're aligned, and ensure your timelines are matching theirs. And it's really more than just money. And I think, Raheem talked about this. So the best social investors will bring strategic value, not just money, to that relationship, to that partnership. They will open their networks to you. They'll offer you expertise, governance support, and they will speak to other investees about the relationship that they have. It's important that you understand your legal structure because that will determine what type of investor you can go to. So different social investors will specialize in different structures. So whether you're a CIC, you're a charity, you're a cooperative, understand that there are constraints with some of your opportunities in a particular model. So make sure you're using the right investor, because if they're looking for, returns, if they're looking for, so it really depends on what they're looking for. And also pay attention to the due diligence. So how do they conduct their due diligence? Do they understand your social impact measurement? Are they asking thoughtful questions about your theory of change or your logic model? Because if it's purely financial lens, they may miss what makes your organization really valuable. And the key thing is long-term. What expectations around exit, depending on what type of package you're going for, or what's the repayment terms. So many social enterprises don't have traditional exit routes. So you need to ensure that your investors are comfortable with alternative approaches. So echoing a lot of what Raheem has said, but it's also the responsibility of the leader of that social, that business to think, right, okay, have I got the right partner here? Is this the right strategic partner for me?
Okay, thank you. And by just to kind of finish up on this section of questions around kind of the mission and values, what common challenges do organizations face when linking investment to mission and impact?
Thanks, Asha. When we find that we're engaging with organizations, so within our process, we have this assessment that we do, and we go through everything with them. And you find that a lot of organizations, the leaders don't necessarily have the full time to do the level of information search and outreach and conversations and networking that is necessary to help them understand the landscape that they're in. So they end up going into it, treating it like it's another grant, which kind of speaks to what Peter was saying and what's been kind of put in the chat. So it's highly mission-led in the conversation. It's very much focused on the impact that's going to be created. But the flip side of that is there is a balance to it. One of the collaborations that we've recently done with a social investor, kind of afterwards we kind of spoke about like why was this the deal that made sense to you the most over the other ones that we introduced, so that we could learn a little bit more and support more collaborations in funding with that investor. And they basically said that they wouldn't fund someone that didn't have the mission and impact lens tightly screwed on. They wouldn't experience, they wouldn't fund someone who didn't understand their theory of change, or they wouldn't fund someone who didn't actually know what they were doing to support their community. But all of that is a baseline, because that is what you should be doing anyway on your day-to-day, month-to-month board meetings, all of the things, whatever it is you're doing. That is all part and parcel with what is expected of you in this sector. So the link for the thing that becomes the investment element that we don't really use in the grant making space, while it is difficult to get a grant, the thing that kind of makes this different is that just as all of those things are important, you being able to talk about and know your numbers is just as important. Like, I know most of us, and this is no denigration because I did it too, most of us learn first how to build a business through Dragon's Den. And honestly, know your numbers. Remember your numbers, know what your numbers are, understand your numbers, where do they come from? And maybe it's not you that's going to be that person in your organization. Maybe there's someone else that you can bring in or whatever. But the challenge, essentially, to kind of wrap it up here, but the challenge really is that you care so much about what you're doing, and you're not necessarily that tuned in. You're doing it, making it financially sustainable, making it scalable, if that's the dream or ambition, speaking to what Raheem was saying, or making it something that will make a return, and even knowing what type of return, what level of return is realistic, and how the world that is changing around us fits into that context of what you're trying to do.
Thank you. And actually, as you talk about kind of finances, I'm going to now move on to kind of financial readiness and sustainability, and I've got a group of questions around that. So I'm going to ask Raheem. We hear about investment ready everywhere. How do you actually assess it?
This is, I think, a hard one. I think because there isn't a universal approach and definition, and sort of varies by investor and social investor. But I will start by saying that investment readiness doesn't mean perfect. It means clarity, ability, and confidence. So being able to show that you understand your business fundamentals, the who, the what, the why, and the how of your business, and use capital responsibly is essentially what it comes down to. I'll go into more detail on 3 indicators that we tend to sort of look for. And Bayo, you summed it up perfectly. The first one is clarity on the numbers. So you don't need a fancy Excel model, but like Bayo said, you should be able to talk about your revenues, your costs, and the assumptions that sit behind any future projections for your business. It gives investors a sense of comfort that your business is commercially sound and sound enough to sustain what is repayable finance. The second one is operational stability. So having the capacity, the people, and the processes in place to sustain whatever level you're currently at in terms of operations, as well as a plan to expand your capacity to deliver the work that the investment will fund, if the investment is to fund an expansion, for example. And third, and having a clear and realistic investment ask. So realistic in that it fits your revenue stage and your ability to repay without strain. This comes back to that sort of revenue point or that numbers point. And then clear in that you know exactly what the investment will be used for and what milestones it'll help you achieve. As a final point, I'll add that you don't have to be investment ready to speak to investors. There is support out there that exists to help founders to become investment ready. The Growth Impact Fund, for example, offers a pre-investment program that I manage that offers tailored support to founders to get them ready for investment with the Growth Impact Fund. And I know Create Equity and others do similar.
Right.
So
Thanks, Raheem.
I'll stop there.
So, Deborah, can I just ask then, when founders approach you early, What tells you they truly understand readiness rather than just rehearsing the terminology?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. So every funder is looking for different things, and Raheem mentioned that. So there are some, what I would consider some really overarching things that a leader must do and must know for whichever fund they're looking at. And so these are the things that, you know, to describe what is investment readiness. I think it's two things. It's know your social mission and have the business fundamentals in place. And I'll cover these in just a little bit more detail. So you should lead with clarity on your impact model. You know why you're doing something is really, really important. So you should be able to articulate your theory of change or your logic model very concisely. And that means that you should be able to write it down. You can do it verbally, you can articulate it verbally, or you should be able to write it down. And you must be able to do that with real clarity. And the reason for that is that if you're going for investment, the investment committee need to get what you do very quickly. Because if they check out, then they're not going to consider you for investment. If they can understand what is it you actually do very quickly, that's a real positive. So they want to see that you measure your outcomes and not just outputs. So what is it you do, but the impact that you're going to make. We've talked about this, and I think this is going to be a recurring theme throughout today's session. Show financial literacy and realism. So demonstrate that you understand your numbers. I'm going to use a term here. I'm going to call it unit economics. That is the direct revenues and the costs associated with a single product or service that you're doing. And the biggest difference between the commercial world and the social impact world. And that is that if you've been given grants, you won't necessarily have worked out what your unit economics are. You'll have been given a grant, and I can see Peter's nodding there. You've been given a grant. And actually, if you can understand the unit economics, so that's your direct costs and costs associated with your single service or product, customer or transaction. If you understand that, you can become investment ready. And actually, I think that's most of the work that intermediaries do. That's where we tend to focus our efforts with business leaders, is understanding that. And once you understand that, then actually you can write a forecast, you can write a business plan, you can do what's required. But it's really important that you are optimistic, but not overly optimistic. You have to be realistic about what you're putting into your forecast or to your business plan. That's where the realism comes in.
So, Deborah, I don't want to give away all of the nuggets, because I'm going to ask Bayo and Peter to kind of add to this conversation. And Bayo specifically, and what financial modeling tools or disciplines do you encourage organizations to adopt when they're exploring repayable finance? And I know you have experience of that because of the work that you've done through the Make It.
Make it big.
Make it big.
Make it big. One of our investment readiness programs. That we've done with Pathway. Right. So,
is there a particular model? Yeah,
absolutely. They can take this back super early, which is stop relying entirely on Excel and or Google Sheets for everything. Stop treating it like you are accounting via receipts. Start using software. If you're using just your bank statements or just your invoices or just your contracts to understand your financial position, start putting all of that information in software that makes sense for you. There's Xero, there's QuickBooks, there's Sage. Start doing that. Start actually checking it on a regular basis. Start trying to understand it yourself. There are so many courses out there on finance for non-financial managers. There's free things on YouTube. There's paid things that you can go to. Just start taking bookkeeping seriously. Understanding that element of your business from a day-to-day perspective will help you start understanding the things that Deborah's talking about around economics from a fixed and variable cost perspective. So it's not so much a kind of a it's not so much like a particular financial model. It's more of a particular financial practice. Like, don't outsource our money just to your accountant, because when it comes time, that accountant, that no one's going to give you well, it's highly unlikely that you will get investment based on what's in your accountant's brain, because they don't work for you all the time. So it needs to be in your brain as well. So you need to find a way to make the numbers fun and interesting to you.
I hear you. And so, Peter, what are the financial indicators that gave you the confidence that Swim could repay any investment that you sought?
I think to an element, I terminology when I reflect on our behaviour of unconscious competence, right, which you then convert into conscious competence. So to a large extent, you know, there's a framework that you need to understand is, will your business bring in enough cash to service its operations? Will there be any money left over? Is there any evidence that you can see your model generates a surplus? Can you see that, even though you can't get into the minutiae? Because if you can, then already you've got the foundations, right, of a business that, with the right kind of skill set that you'll need to deploy quite quickly if you want to understand and have an element of confidence. What we learned is the one thing that can defeat you in very early stages is if you start to get answer. There is nothing which will give a degree of uncertainty and lack of confidence if you cannot speak to the numbers. So I would suggest, even though the passion might be on frontline delivery, which of course is the ultimate goal, you better make just as much effort to understand your finances. And then I think Deborah has articulated it beautifully. In fact, everybody has done. If you understand that, even at the most basic level, and then you start to understand who you're partnering with, and you build, what I found was really, really exciting, is that old-fashioned bank manager relationship. Absolutely. You want the relationship with an investor where it's a bit like going to see the old-fashioned bank manager, you know, where you're going to talk through the detail of your business, and they're going to help you. Deborah talked so well to this, and you know, Bayo, you also talked about bringing in the experts to help you get your house in order, ready to be able to satisfy committees when it arrives at their desk. So unconscious competence, make sure the numbers stack up.
Okay. Peter, you know what I wanted to do? I wanted to put everyone stick their hands up in the air. Do any of you ever remember having a meeting with your bank manager?
That's right.
Those days are done.
They are done. But can I just quickly talk to that? Because what I found...
Oh, no, I really not yet. Okay. Stick a pin, hold on to that, and maybe when we do the Q&A, you might want to, because I want to move now on to the purpose and appropriateness of investment. And Bayo, I want to ask you specifically, how do you help organizations test whether investment is the right route or whether other funding is more appropriate?
I mean, if you can get the thing that you want grant funded and you have a relationship with your philanthropist or trusted foundation or wherever you're getting the money from, and that is a logical way for you to sustainably get this thing done, then do that. No one should be entering into social investments as a replacement for what can logically be grant funded and or what can logically be fundraised through enterprising work. So if you can sell services, sell products, whatever it is, that's where you should go first. So when we've exhausted those avenues and you've been able to look at what is actually possible, those things, kind of actually going through the motions of building the product or the service, or understanding what the fundraising opportunities are that you may not yet have maximized. Those things help you interrogate, actually, what is the thing that if I just had this fixed cost organized, so maybe it's a venue and that would make everything else easier, or maybe it's a kitchen, or it could be a sports space, or it could be any number of things. It could be computers. I don't, but whatever the thing is, that this little thing that is highly unlikely that I will be able to make enough money in enough time, or get a grant funder to give me the money to do this. That's the start of like, okay, what can social investment do? And how will I use this money as a bedrock and a foundation to be a wellspring to the other income diversification factors that I have been implementing over time? So those are the conversations that they have with their consultant that we provide them, and they build on over time to then start thinking about what is the right business model to attach to this to ensure repayment of whatever the fixed cost is.
Thanks, Diane. So, Deborah, when's the right time for leaders to connect with social investors, and how can they prepare for that first conversation?
Amazing. Thanks for that question. So there's a soft approach to this, and then there's a hard approach to this. The soft approach is to start networking. So first off, look online, see what good finance resources there are there. They've got lots of list of partners, so you can do a lot of early on research online. And then you can then start engaging with some of these partners that might be partnering with somebody like Good Finance or Access, for instance. And then sign up to their newsletters, go to their events, go to conferences. So you're starting to experience what social investment looks like, and you can start to, and these events often there'll be leaders attending that might have already had social investment. So you can have those soft conversations around, well, who's your investor? What's your relationship like? So you can start to get a feel for what's going on in that environment. But in terms of a timeline, I think it looks a little bit like this. So it depends on what your purpose of connecting is for. So if you want to do that early relationship building, you can do that before you actually need the investment. So start as early as possible, get a good understanding of the landscape. And then pre-investment preparation, you need to be reaching out at least 6 to 12 months before you actually need the funds. And the reason for that is it could take you that long to find the right type of investor. And you're not going to get that just by, picking up the phone or sending an email. You're going to get that by being in the environment of lots of other different types of investors. And then once you've isolated the one or two that you think might be right for you, reach out to them and ask for, a quick meeting, a pre-investment meeting. So you don't even make that application. From here, you might find that they offer grants to get your investment ready. So something like the Reach Fund, which is amazing, up to £15,000 is available. And if you access that funding, then they can do some of that work around that financial planning and resilience and understanding that's really, really important. So that could be done through some Reach funding. And then when you're ready, you've hopefully found the right investor, because you've done your due diligence. You've had some pre-investment support, and then you make that application and you're ready for those conversations.
Thank you. So Peter, what was the tipping point that confirmed that social investment was the right tool for your organizational challenge?
I think the tipping point for me was the fact that we recognized that raising investment as a community interest organization, and this is also a critical thing, is thinking about your organizational structure and governance and how that ties in to raising finance, because lots of the commercial organizations didn't quite understand KICs, so in a way you're kind of forced to have to look in alternative ways you understand this hybrid model. That was one of the first kinds of challenges. And then I suppose recognizing that if you can't get, and also my particular model, and I have to say this, was always predicated, and I think you need to understand this, in your early days is how do you want to generate your revenue? Now, my model was always one of a blended approach between commercial business and grant funding. What we didn't want to do was be wholly dependent on grant funding. So therefore, and I refused to have that, so therefore we had to be commercially minded and really go out actively, right? And look for people who were going to understand us. And I think it talks to what Deborah was talking about, that 6 months to a year lead time. Because there's no quick fix really here. You have to put the heavy graft in. And then it tends to fall out. Who is beginning to become the right people? And just going back to that point, I think was important to mention is that when you find a social investor who is aligned to you, they become like a bit of a bank manager.
Yeah.
And even for those people who are too young to remember bank managers were people that were fixed in a building that you could go and see and talk to about your business ideas. That's long gone. But the social investors that are right for you bring back that kind of relationship and talk you through it.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm taking.
Thank you, Peter. And actually, that was something that I picked up at I think the first Good Finance event that I actually chaired, where a mainstream organization made it fundamentally clear. They became like friends. They were like not just, that they were in their corner every step of the way, both pre, during, and post investment. So Raheem, but from your perspective, what constitutes a strong case for social investment for you?
Thanks, Asha. I think a strong use case for me is where social investment helps to stabilize or grow a business and its impact. There are many examples out there, but for example, expanding a proven product or service in order to grow your impact, growing a revenue stream, or securing an asset to help you with your long-term sustainability. I think what's more maybe telling is what's not a good fit. And I think it's not a good fit if you're using it to plug short-term gaps, if you're using it to test unproven models with no demand signals, never mind revenue that it's generating. And the point is that you need, with social investment, at least a line of sight to revenue. That makes it responsible. It helps you and the investor give you that confidence that you're able to repay it and it doesn't create undue strain on the business. Even if that line of sight to revenue is not immediate, at least need some sort of line of sight to revenue. So yeah, I think for me, three things. Good use cases sit where impact, revenue or traction, and I'll add organizational capacity to deliver sort of intersect.
Well, listen, we're coming to the end of this particular session. So everyone who is online, please get ready. If you've got your questions, if you haven't put them in, I should have said, if you haven't already put them in the chat, please raise your hand and ask your question. So I did want to touch on kind of risk and resilience, and maybe that will come up in the last questions that I have for you. So this is a question to all of you, and I want a quick fire response. Okay. So my first question is, if you could share one piece of advice with a leader considering social investment for the first time, what would it be, Raheem?
Sorry, struggling to find the unmute button. I would say plan for investment, but focus on the problem you're solving. I think if the business and the impact model work and capital can genuinely be used to scale it or grow it or stabilize it, then the case for investment will emerge naturally. And then to reiterate, have conversations early. Relationship building is important, and the investment process itself often takes longer than people anticipate. So that was two. I cheated there.
So that's three. That's three. 3 for 1 you got. Okay. Bayer, same question to you. One piece of advice.
Get your house in order. This is really specific to your governance structure, your board, having the right skill set on your board, the right skill set in your team, really understanding what you need to know internally and building that internal resilience. Let's bring that in. Building that internal resilience that will allow you to have these conversations like they're a joy, not a torment.
Thank you. Deborah, same question to you.
Okay, so I'm going to try to avoid duplication here. So know what type of structure you've got, because your corporate structure will determine what you can access in terms of investment. So registered charities have more constraints. You can typically only get grants and certain types of loan finance. And the asset lock means investors can't extract value. Community interest organisations have a little bit more flexibility. But again, they've got to be mission aligned investors. So I know there could be organisations here or leaders here that are starting a business. There could be, it depends where they are in their life cycle. So your structure is really important. And 2 bits of advice I would give when you're looking at social investment: governance. You've got to have, it's a real risk indicator to an investor if you don't have good governance. And that's making sure that you have a board and that you are not, the people on your board bring skills to the organisation, and they're not just there because, they're great friends of yours and they really believe in what you're doing, but they can bring skills because they can help your operational team. And also that you've got somebody in your operational team that understands the numbers. You've got to know your numbers, because this goes back to, there are lots of, bits of software out there. You've got Excel, you've got all sorts of things. But if you know your numbers, i.e., what's your products or service, what's it cost to generate it? I look for 2 things when I first assess an organisation: governance, numbers, and the rest comes naturally.
All right. And finally, Peter, one piece of advice.
Well, one piece of advice, Deborah's touched on it. I would say is understand how much the money's costing you. This is real, and this goes to my point about the word social and warm and cozily and tickly and all the rest of it. It is hard-nosed numbers. And when you look back, and particularly when you start to compare it with commercial models, you'll see that the money's expensive. And you need to understand that in terms of your business, how much is it costing you?
Yeah. And I will actually say it also does depend on who that fund manager is and what that return on investment is. Because I think that's one of the issues that Pathway is going to contend with. And it's the conversations that we had across the country where, some lenders are not good for us, right? Even in the social impact investment space, okay? So let's not get that twisted. And on that final note, before we go to Q&A, what myth or misconception about social investment would you most like to dismantle? Bio.
That one size fits all. One size fits all. That as long as you, kind of rehashing what others have said, but you do have to find the right team, the right structure, the right ethos for you, and it's not just money. It's hopefully a relationship that you can scale over time.
Yeah, Raheem, what myth or misconception?
I think that you need to be big or perfect or sophisticated to be investable. I'll say some of our strongest investees were early in their journey, but had clarity, some traction, strong leadership and governance, and a thoughtful growth plan. And if it's the only thing you remember from what I've said today, is that investment and investment readiness is about potential and not about perfection.
Peter, myth or misconception?
I think I already answered it at the very beginning, and it's that word social.
Okay.
Social doesn't always equate to good.
I hear you. And finally, Deborah.
So I'd like to say that there are funds out there that are blended, where there's a mix of grants and investment, which actually means that the cost of that, it can be quite low, because all you're paying in those instances, particularly if you get 100% grant, 100% loan, all you're paying is a small arrangement fee and the interest payments. So actually look for those blended finance options. I think they are definitely worth looking at, you know, rather than just that repayable loan, which some of you may have had the benefit of. So look for those. Going out and looking for investors, look at blended finance as well as repayable finance. There are options out there.
Brilliant, absolutely. And I can definitely tell you from now that is something that Pathway is looking to see come through when we go out to kind of tender. We want to see the different stacking and blended finance and what that return on investment could potentially look like. So thank you all very much. I saw a lot of heads down, lots of people who were scribbling away. You gave us some nuggets. So it's now over to our audience and wondering, has anyone got any questions? Please either raise your hand in the chat and let me just double check the chat. I'm so sorry, I've been really bad and not been looking at the chat. So do we have any questions from any colleagues who were in the room? Any points of clarification? Leslie, come on in. I see you. Welcome.
Hi, Asha. Good seeing you once again, and thank you for you know, putting this event on to help you know, aspiring consortiums, businesses you know, explore the world of, you know, social investment. Obviously, we weren't one of the organizations or part of a consortium who are from the East Midlands, but were successful in getting your prestigious investment from Pathway. But we're not giving up. We're on the march and we're continuing. Well, for us, as we've got a sector which is quite disparate, many different parts working in different ways, etc. And the East Midlands has got a great need of investment, especially for those businesses who are, you know, are from the global majority, and even just the wider sector doesn't get as much investment from other parts of the country. So as organizations who are willing, as a part consortium, or organizations like ourselves who have been, you know, in this business development world, supporting businesses from, you know, growth to scale up, etc., we're wanting to work with people and align with those organizations who are willing to work with us. So as we're doing this, we're not grant dependent. We win contracts and deliver them mainly from local authorities, etc. But we're seeing the need through our research, which we've done, realizing that actually our businesses are crying out for a range of investments, and we just want to facilitate that.
So one of the things I will say, and I'm going to bring Bio in specifically because I know she's worked outside of London, is that even though we may not be, Pathway is not investing in the East Midlands in the first wave, we still have wave 2 and we have wave 3. And during that period of time, we want to invest in the development of the infrastructure that could potentially be ready to receive deployment of funding. So it feels like it's a desert and you've been left behind. Trust me, I'm not leaving you behind. Everything happens when it's supposed to happen. So we want to kind of strengthen the ties and strengthen the partnerships. And Bio has, I don't know if Bio wants to offer anything, because I know you've worked in the East Midlands specifically.
No, absolutely. I think we recently ran an event and we had literally people from everywhere just kind of pulling different members of our team aside and saying, next time you have to do it in insert town, city here. And it's absolutely true. There's a desperate need for these communities, these resources, this information to be spread in lots of different locations. And while there is obviously the fantastic work that Pathway is doing, there is a much larger story of the dormant asset schemes, the government's delineation of funds, the things that are happening, as I'm sure you know. And we're actually really gratefully, I feel, in the precipice of something where we are seeing a lot more interest in outside London, outside England specific funding, which is really fantastic. So we work across the entire country in very, very small pockets, and we're doing a lot of work to try and figure out where we can take all of the tools and resources that we've built over time. We have such a massive evidence base at this point of exactly what Black and global majority-led organizations are seeing at the ground level, exactly what's happening in their organizations across all of these different investment readiness criteria that we've mentioned. And we are also looking for organizations to kind of take that information to and collaborate with, so that we can start building that gap, so that when the time does come and there's a second wave or a third wave, or hey, let's say it, more money, not just this money, but way more money coming in, we are ready. So I think now we're about to release a report, not to plug it, but it is apt in the name. We're about to release a report called the Preparedness Agenda. And it really is about understanding where we are now and what we need to start preparing for, so that when this next wave comes, and I'm not speaking just about Pathway, though I do believe there'll be a conduit for it, when this next wave does arrive, we are ready to pick it up. Because at the moment, there's just too many excuses as to why we're not ready, and we need to start answering those questions now. So I completely agree with you, and I think it's about just having those conversations. So feel free to reach out to me. More than happy to have that conversation at any time and support you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Maya. Ishe?
I'd like to invite Nabila. Would you like to ask your question, Nabila, if you're still online? Please unmute and go ahead and ask the question. Are you still online? If she's not with us, let me ask the question on your behalf, which was, what if you want to be a lone person on a CIC, but want a mentor or board that act as a sounding board only? Is this seen as investable? Raheem?
Yes, I mean, there's no hard requirement that for minimum number of founders. Again, I think it's important that for where you are, that you have the right mix of skills, expertise, to operate at the level that you're currently at. But also, if you're looking to expand, then that might need to increase with, because I think when you're small or smaller, you can sort of manage all these things on your own. One of the things that become really hard going forward if you plan to expand is the founder's capacity, and sort of realizing that being the sole sort of point of failure or the sole bottleneck or in charge of sort of everything becomes really, really hard for a business that's looking to grow. But in and of itself, it's not seen as a bad thing if you do have these support structures around you, especially when you're a solo founder, then that certainly helps.
Thank you. Would any other panel member like to add to that, Bayo?
Oh, sorry. Very quickly.
Yeah.
While absolutely, really, it's wonderful that Growth Impact Fund does have that kind of no stipulation. There are quite a lot of funders, social investors that have minimum of 4 directors, and they want to see that exactly as Raheem was saying, is that you're not a single point of failure. So, and then if you think about it, and it is slightly weird but realistic, you do have to think about how the kind of metrics of lived experience and metrics of ownership work when you're trying to access the pots of money that are dedicated for Black and Brown-led funders. So if you're the only one, if it's only your skill, your experience, your voice, you're potentially cutting yourself off from other opportunities that could be extremely valuable to you. So one level is there's lots of funders that would just immediately say, no, you don't meet our criteria, because they have hedged their bets around a certain number of funders, of directors and active people within the organization. And as well as that, there are a lot of funders that just won't take the meeting.
Yeah,
unfortunately. So it's perfectly reasonable to follow your own path. Just also reasonable to recognize that the system we're in, and until it changes, you might need to have very, very active conversations with who's willing to walk around the well-trodden path with you.
Thanks, Brian. Nabila, I don't know if you want to come through again. You've got another question up. And a reminder, if you have a question, please raise your hand or stick it in the chat box. Nabila, would you like to come in now? And if you can't, I'll ask you a question. Oh, there you are. Good.
I'm here, and I found the unmute button. I'm on my phone, so it's all set up differently. Hi, thank you very much. My second question was around mentors. So I have been in the world of work and the world of third sector and community interest companies for a long time. But obviously I'm now running my own CIC, and I'm very much aware that I don't know everything. So obviously I am keen to have mentorship, guidance, those sorts of things. But I haven't been able to find any free resources. And as a small company, as a CIC and all the rest of it, part of the thing that limits us reaching out for support stuff is that there's an element of cost associated with things. And the business growth stuff that I've accessed in the West Midlands is very short term. So it's like come to 6 sessions, and it's all focused on get your business canvas ready, get this ready, get that, which is all the stuff I've already done. And we're 4 years in, we're on the next step. But I know that I appreciate mentorship and guidance and see the value in that, but it doesn't seem like there's much out there, like I said, without cost. So are there any tips on how to access that sort of thing?
Deborah, Peter?
Well, I was just going to simply say, my principle is you can't keep what you've got unless you give it away. That's a fundamental principle that I've always worked by. And I believe that's why our organization has become as successful as it is. So I am always available to just share what humble experience I have got about the trials and tribulations that I've navigated and successfully, unapologetically, successfully to bring my organization from a humble organization a couple of years ago to a significant multi-million-pound growing organization, and all the pitfalls, but all the successes that equally go with that. Failure is success.
Nabila, grab him now.
Grab
him now.
I definitely will. Peter, please get in touch. Share my details with Peter. I'm happy to take on board any guidance, advice. I'm based in the West Midlands, so yeah.
It doesn't matter. You can be anywhere. It's called virtual mentoring.
yeah. And I believe there's a lot of space here for lots of people. It's not one size fits all. There's lots of, in the West Midlands alone, there's so many community interest companies, non-profit, social enterprises set up because it shows and demonstrates to me that there is a need for the provision that they are providing. Yeah.
Deborah, I don't know if you wanted to add anything more around mentorship.
I can add a few things. So first off, having a trustee board, I would normally look for 3 trustees, and they will bring different skills, hopefully. But board trustees make amazing mentors. They really do, because that's what they want to do. They want to give. They give their time freely, and so I would, wherever possible, look to your own board for mentorship. And then I would look at there are programs out there. Our sister organisation, MeWe Foundation, does a mentoring program. It's funded by Deutsche Bank, D-Base. They run it every year. And they're always looking for individuals that want to go through their mentorship program. So there are lots of them out there. And then the other thing, and I'm going to talk about intermediaries, such as Do It Now, create equity, Ubeli. That's what we do. You know, we yes, whilst we might provide pre-investment readiness support, or you know, we do lots of that, but actually quite a lot of what we do, particularly through our capacity building programs, is mentoring. We released an insight report earlier this year, and the one thing that we noted was that actually the time that we spent with leaders transferring skills and knowledge, we actually spent 100% more on mentoring. And so actually there is a real need for mentorship. And mentorship can come in many forms, because you could be transferring skills, you could be transferring knowledge, or you could be, you know, exploring reflective practice with the leader, you know, how to make decisions about your next step and where your income is going to be coming from, and whether a social investment is right for you. And that can be done through a mentoring process. So your board, look to those, look for others, organizations similar to yours. It can be national now because you can do mentoring across a screen, and look at those intermediary organizations. They run programs, capacity building programs, mentoring programs, and there's normally 1 or 2 open at any one time.
I was trying to place myself in between you guys. I'm the CEO of CAS, Communities and Sanctuary Seekers Together. During COVID, there was money all over. After COVID, the money went away. For a charitable organization like us, we put on size 11 shoe, yet our feet were size 6. Immediately after the COVID, the shoe became a slippers, and then everything was not adding up. I'd never laid down people, put people on redundant, but I did that. And then immediately after COVID, the next 2 years were election years. CAS was formed to end destitution within the UK immigration system. So we deal with immigration. All our services are routes out of destitution. And we provide free legal advice. We've got accommodation, you name it. 2023 December, we're about to close. With no money, we're in debt over 60K, HMRC, pensions, and things of that sort. Then from Norway, the Home Office decided to give 6-7 day notices to refugees who have been granted immigration status by then. They had nowhere to go. They don't fit in the RSI funding, which is Rough Sleepers Initiative funding, because the refugees have to spend at least 15 nights sleeping on the street in order to be counted as homeless. So from there, from zero, we started a housing income generating project. Funding was not coming through our side because of the nature of the people who look after. And from Norway, our income is now about over 1.2 million. With no funding from anyone, with no help from anyone, but just being resilient. And myself, I'm a refugee from Zimbabwe. But where we are right now is that we have our income, which is coming in every month, but it's hand to mouth. It pays wages, it pays all our expenses, it pays landlords, it pays the office expenses. But if to get somebody to give us, let's say, around about 100,000, we'll buy our first house. We are actually applying to be, I don't know if anybody's aware of Section 106 accommodation. Yep. Where you see all these new builds are being done, there's shortage of Section 106 landlords or whatever.
Yeah. So Stanford, sorry to cut in, but do you have a specific question in mind? Thank you for sharing.
I want to find out where I want to work with a mentee who would actually say that this is where you are and this is where you need to go now.
Well, okay. So you heard from colleagues around the potential to go to some specific organizations. And I think off the back of this event, Olivia, maybe between the two of us, we'll put some a list of resources and links in, because I think everyone would benefit from some of the information, particularly around kind of mentoring. But actually, you also get that mentoring when you do step forward to start your kind of investment journey as well. So also, even though it's not necessarily mentoring, it's capacity building, call it support, but it is mentoring, because they're not, people like Bayo and Deborah and Raheem are not going to lead you down a garden path. They're there to actually steer you in the right direction and make sure that what you're asking for is A, what you actually need, and B, whether or not the investment is the right the right fund and tool for you. I'm conscious I've got a few more minutes left before we kind of wrap up the session. Wondering if there are any more questions. I'm going to go quickly back into the chat to double check. So, and can I just say thanks to everyone who has been putting information and links to other resources, really, really helpful. Stanford, there's some, Olivia's put something in the chat around being able to speak to an organization called Micro Rainbow. So everyone, I would say, please look to the chat, but we will collect a lot of this information and share that out. Bayo, you wanted, I see your finger, come on in.
Yes, thank you. No, I just wanted to flag something in the chat as well. There's a really fantastic organization called Prime Advocates that runs a social finance hot desk, and we've worked with them for many years now, and they provide us with pro bono legal support. So when we've got any kind of governance things to do, so they help with the legal side of social investment. So when we've got those kinds of things and we don't want to have to pay a really expensive lawyer to do that very specific thing, they can connect you with a law firm, and we've worked with some of the best law firms in the country pro bono through them, and that's in the chat as well.
Okay. So are there any other points that anyone, or questions that anyone else has for our panelists? If not, before I hand back to Olivia to kind of close down today's session, I really want to give a huge thank you to our panel, to Raheem, to Deborah, to Bayo, to Peter, and to everyone who's joined us online today. These conversations, I think you'll agree, really matter, because they help you as leaders make much sharper decisions about the future of your organizations. And I really hope you're leaving with a lot more clarity, some confidence, and a better sense of what it really takes to navigate social investment. And I just really want to thank all of you again for being with us, and enjoy the rest of your day. So Olivia, back to you, and thank you all again for joining.
Yes, thank you very much, Asher, and a huge thank you to the panel. Thank you, Bayo, Raheem, Deborah, and Peter. It was really interesting to hear kind of your insights and learn more about both what your organizations do, but also the different perspectives that you bring around social investment and kind of getting ready for social investment, what organizations should be thinking about. Just to follow up, this is a series of events. We will be hopefully running these events again in 2026, and we are really looking to address some of the topics, some of those big questions around social investment. So if there's an area that you'd like us to cover and you'd like us to delve deeper into, please do share your feedback. We'll be sending out a post-event survey, and please do take just a few minutes to let us know what you'd like to hear about going forward, because these sessions are for you really to kind of unpick what social investment is and how it works. A huge thank you again to the speakers. You've all been really fantastic, and I've learned so much from the answers and insights that you've given. We will be sharing the recording. I will pop it up on the website and just let everyone know whenever that's available. And I will also share kind of a list of the resources, the links that have been shared in the chat, and anything else. Just finally, I would just direct you as well to the Good Finance website. We do have a pre-investment support page where we signpost to some of the fantastic organizations, including Create Equity, Do It Now, and other organizations that are offering support, as well as kind of our investor directory where you can search for investors, advisors based across the UK. We also have over 150 different case studies, examples of social investment to really explain and explore kind of how social investment has been used in different ways. Our panel talked a little bit about blended finance and different types of social investment. So we've got lots of real life examples of how that's been used. But yeah, I just wanted to say a huge thank you again. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We hope that's been useful. We hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. But yeah, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you again soon. Thank you, everyone.
Amazing.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks
Take care.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Lovely to see you. Bye.
Bye.